If you were looking for a final reason to drop Netflix for another streaming service, strap in. This video is definitely going to be it. Now, as if canceling several amazing shows this year wasn't enough, they've been accused of plagiarizing one as well. Yup, you heard that right. For anyone who's on a social media cleanse, we're referring to the recent 1899 Black Silence controversy. Here's everything we know and more. First things first, what controversy are we talking about? Don't get us wrong, we wholly agree that 1899, especially owing to its highly innovative and ambitious sci-fi concepts, was a treat to watch. We're also aware of the fact that, despite its unanswered and underlying mysteries, it has managed to do in its first season what other shows couldn't do in 10. Everything about it, be its use of a multilingual roster of characters to explore a diverse range of themes, or the exquisite slow burn, was nothing short of a masterpiece. But none of this helps the fact that some of its narrative elements were nicked from a Brazilian graphic novel. Yeah, we're not kidding. It's called Black Silence. And get this, critics weren't the only ones to pick up on these similarities. The author, Mary Cagnon, herself took to Twitter to acknowledge the striking similarities between the two. She tweeted, and we quote, "I'm in shock. The day I found out that the 1899 series is just identical to my comic Black Silence, published in 2016. From a closer inspection, it's pretty clear to us that the two stories share elements, specifically in terms of plot, imagery, and cast. But it's also, funnily enough, revealed a handful of differences. To give you the complete picture, we're gonna dive into both. Here we go. Moving on to the similarities between the two. First up, and Cagnon pointed this out herself, there's the pyramid in a desert. From the side-by-side visuals she posted to Twitter, it seems that the one in Black Silence comes quite close to the one that appears as a recurring motif in the show. Not just that, she also showcased how the unexplained deaths in 1899's SS Kerberos and Prometheus, as well as the triangular symbols in the eyes of the characters, correspond with her storytelling tools in the novel. To add to that, she emphasized how her characters also come from different parts of the world. To boot, like their counterparts in the show, they're dealing with personal dramas and mysterious deaths as well. Then she also drew parallels between Captain Ake and her characters, who, if we're not wrong, hear voices calling out to them. Now, the show's newly formed fanbase argues that, despite the likeness, unlike Black Silence, the show doesn't revolve around a post-apocalyptic mission in which a group of astronauts set out to discover an inhabitable planet for the last of humanity. In response, the fans of the comics have pointed out that, while it might not be similar, it's not always going to be the case. To elaborate, the show's closing outer space scene indicates that it could head in a similar direction in its upcoming seasons. Alrighty, with the similarities out of the way, it's time to check out the differences. Up next, why they're both different. Yes, there are a bunch of related elements, but the show is by no means a panel-by-panel copy of the graphic novel. And if we're being honest, while there are several overarching similarities in their plots, the novel aligns more closely with Christopher Nolan's Interstellar and John Carpenter's The Thing. We're making this connection on account of its cosmic horror storyline, and it's focused on a botched space mission. For those of you who don't know, Black Silence is centered on a spacecraft whose passengers land on a mysterious planet. The show, on the other hand, is set on a colossal ship, which is eventually revealed to be a mere construct in a simulation. Yes, even its characters' identities and its bleak middle-of-the-ocean settings are simulated. What's more, some people have proved how the alleged parallels, especially regarding the pyramids, are simply coincidental. They argue that these motifs occur in a plethora of other movies as well. Take films like The Void and Stargate as examples. Likewise, the triangle in the eye symbol is not specific to Mary's works either. Interestingly enough, it's been previously used as a narrative device in Scott Sigler's sci-fi novel Infected, which, just by the way, came out in 2006. That was 10 years before Black Silence. As for the multilingual characters, they might as well go ahead and accuse Sense8 of plagiarism as well. So yeah, there's your complete picture. Decide for yourselves. As far as we're concerned, the mounting differences aren't gonna land Netflix in any trouble. Not to mention some other controversies involving the service. Speaking of Netflix getting into trouble, here are a few other times that the service came under fire. We'd like to begin with how they completely missed the mark with Atypical. In case you didn't know, it was an original comedy series surrounding a high school character on the autism spectrum. Unfortunately, it ended up using the character's autism as a punchline. If that wasn't bad enough, the show also perpetrated several stigmas around autism. Basically, their intentions may have been good, but considering they disheartened viewers, not really. Now, another original that didn't rub audiences the right way was the 2018 film Stepsisters. Centered on the president of a black sorority teaching a white sorority how to step dance for a charity competition, its trailer alone invited bucket loads of backlash for cultural appropriation. The film, of course, has mixed reviews. It's not as self-aware and honest about racial relationships as it claims to be, but again, to each their own. Finally, we'd like to discuss the accessibility issues that continue to crop up. We don't know if you've noticed or not, but a lot, and when we say a lot, we mean a lot, of their content doesn't come with closed captions. They've started adding it to a lot of materials, yes, but that's probably because they've been sued over it a few times now. They're not exactly the disability advocates that people make them out to be. Moving on, let's also talk about the hidden boat names in 1899. First up, Kerberos. With some of the service's other controversies out of the way, it's time to circle back to 1899. We'd like to spend some time explaining why the names of the show's two ships are significant. Trust us, these connections are going to blow your mind. Let's start with Kerberos, or Cerberus as it's officially known. Anyone who grew up even a little bit obsessed with Greek mythology might know that it's the many-headed dog that stands guard outside Tartarus and prevents the dead from leaving. Do you see where we're going with this? The ship on the show is no different. It's apparently that it's holding on to the passengers. It completely bars them from leaving. Following up, Prometheus. Apart from that, we've got a boat called Prometheus. For those of you who don't remember, it's introduced to us when Mora looks at a newspaper headline about it being missing at sea for 4 months. In Greek mythology, Prometheus, as many of our cultured viewers might already know, was the titan that stole fire from the gods to give it to humanity. As a result of this, we humans became an advanced race. But this ruffled Zeus's feathers, if you know what we mean, and he decided to punish him by chaining him to a rock. No, he wasn't done yet. This is Zeus we're talking about after all. From what we know, he went ahead and ordained that an eagle pick at Prometheus's liver each day, thus keeping him in eternal pain. Now, there are several ways in which we can explain this in relation to 1899. It can, for instance, represent both the hellish time that the passengers are always going through, as well as Mora's search for knowledge. And if you were to permit us a little spoiler, then in light of how Mora used her knowledge to spend more time with her dying son via the simulations, it makes perfect sense for her to call one of them Prometheus. That is, after a man who was punished for his pursuit of knowledge. Last but not the least, here's what the inverted triangle might have meant. Before we begin, we'd like to point out that there are at least 10 different ways of looking at the inverted triangle symbol. So, saving us all our valuable time, we've only selected the interpretations that we thought were most likely. For example, much like the inverted triangle model used in journalism, it signifies that the creator of the simulation was aiming for a world devoid of any human emotions. Then one might also compare it to the inverted triangles used by the Nazis to mark different kinds of prisoners. We all know that the passengers are imprisoned by their past, and what better way to communicate that than by means of this symbol? We know, it's all pretty intriguing. That's a wrap for this video. What do you think? Was the show really plagiarized? Did you spot anything else that might count as a symbol? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.